Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Music Lab podcast. My name is Dogg, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you for another episode of the podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us and that helps the bands and artists like Forster. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear, RAR. So, all the way from Middlesbrough, England, welcome, Forster. How are you?
I'm very good, man. Thank you for having me on. I really
Abs-
appreciate it.
Absolutely. You are, well, it's afternoon there, so a beautiful day out in England, or?
It is actually. I'm actually in the south of England. I'm in Bristol at the moment. I'm not sure what it's like in my hometown, but it's finally lighting up a little bit now. As we're kind of moving out of winter, which is nice. I say it'd probably be freezing for a lot of the folk in America. But it's nicer.
Yeah, it's been a rough winter, I must say. It's been colder than
Yeah,
it
it's been just
usually been.
gloomy. Yeah.
So, so the reason that I know about you and the reason that I've known about a lot of these bands and unsigned bands is because of South by Southwest. You are getting to go there next month. Talk about the process, talk about, that the decision to do it in the first place and just kind of all of that leading up to what happens next month.
Yeah, of course. Well, I've got to say a massive thank you to the organisations that made it possible for me to even go out in the first place, which is the Tees Valley Combined Authority and Generator Northeast, which are two organisations that have helped with the funding to make it possible for artists like myself to be able to go out and do these international gigs. And yeah, they've just done so much for up and coming artists locally to me in the northeast to just they're there to kind of help with the progression of things and to act as ways to help grassroots artists move forward and navigate through such an overwhelming industry. And I'm really grateful to them that they've been able to make it possible. I think it's perfect timing for me as well because it's been a little while of me kind of finding my feet as an artist, writing, recording, trying to just find who I am as well, because it's something that takes a time, I feel like, to realize who you are. And then I've kind of been naturally just went down the road of being a British artist with guitar music. It's indie music, but then it's got a lot of country influence and a lot of folk influence, and it feels like a good time to be heading out to somewhere like Texas.
So, was it a difficult decision to choose a song like that you were going to send to them, or?
It was, I mean, it just felt like the right time. I mean, last year things were a little bit too early. And then as things have kind of progressed naturally, and then I've had more music to put out there, I've got a bit more experience under my belt. We've built a bit more momentum. Um, I think it would have, without Tees Valley, without Generator and organisations like that, I'm sure spread, across the UK to help artists like myself, it wouldn't be possible. But then, when they came forward and they said there's this opportunity for you, it felt, what, let's go for it. Let's head out there. It feels like a really good time. I've had a great year last year. We hit the ground running in January in 2025 this year with new music straight away. Also got the next single, the follow up single is coming out the day before we fly out
Oh, nice.
to South by Southwest. So I'll be very much in the middle of a sort of single campaign while in Austin, which for me is perfect because it gives me a new scenery, new environment to promote from, and be playing live a lot of times as well. So it felt like for me, although it can be a bit of a daunting process and you don't know whether it's the right thing to do. It's a big move. It felt perfect. Felt a really good timing, and we're really really excited to be going out.
Well, you told me before we started recording, you have been to America before, but it's only been
Yeah,
to like Orlando.
yeah,
So Austin's a little bit different than Orlando, I will
yeah.
say.
So,
I've
so
been
I've
to
heard.
both.
So I've heard. Yeah, I mean, my family, like I said, before we, instead of going on lots of little holidays, we spend, 3, 4 years saving up to head out to Orlando, and then go to the sort of Disney parks and the Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure. That's been a big part of my childhood, and I've just always loved it out there. I kind of just love the whole feel of being out in America. It's yeah, everything about it really. I love I love how I love the people that I've interacted with when I've been out there. I love the endless choice of anything you kind of want. It's kind of it's always amazed me as well. So I'm really looking forward to going out somewhere new anyway with Austin. I've heard great things. The only thing I kind of know about Austin is what I've seen or heard on online, but it's all been really really great things.
Yeah. So what kind are you bringing full band or are you bringing
Yeah,
like the team or you like how many people are coming with you?
bringing the full team out with me. In the form of the band and my manager, Adam, who Adam Marsden, who I work extensively with for sort of content. He's a photographer as well. He just works with me with touring and stuff. He's the visuals behind everything. My sound engineer, Matt Walsh, who's unbelievable and makes everything obviously sound perfect no matter where we seem to go or whatever challenges we seem to be faced when on the road. My manager is out there with as well. Who's obviously put everything together and the glue behind everything. And then my band as well. I've got, well, not my full band. I've got four. Another four including me, but three of my band members, which is like the core band that I've had since the beginning. Which is Rob Maynard on drums, Billy Smith on electric guitar, and Connor Boone on bass guitar. And we've been together a while and played together for probably, I think this will be our 6th year playing together. So we know each other well on stage and off.
So is it kind of a democracy then within the band or are you kind of the definitive leader?
Yeah, I would say it's always been because the project started with me, not really knowing whether I wanted to go down the route of having a band or not. I just wanted like so completely solo project, and then try to make it as simple as possible with everything because there's so many different things that go on within a project. So I've always kind of tried to keep the lads separate so they can just focus on what they need to focus on, which is playing live and contributing to the songs, making them sound as good as possible. So I try and keep both things kind of separate, and that's how it seems to work best for everyone. And then we can have as much fun as possible when we head out and play live and stuff. And yeah, that's how it works at the moment. So it's kind of yeah. Sometimes even the lads have said a few times like they don't know how I do it. Sometimes with juggling the amount of things you kind of have to juggle as an artist. In the form of making sure all social media platforms are accounted for, and you're being consistent with everything. And then on top of that, you're writing. On top of that, you're recording, and then you're out playing gigs and stuff. It's crazy that it's you know people. It's crazy how far you have to go into the journey of being an artist while still having to do other means of jobs to survive financially while doing, when you're in the thick of it as an artist, even in the early days, it's more than a full time job. I don't really shut off. There's some days where there isn't a time I shut off. There's no kind of, right, we're finished for the day, unless you kind of make a purposeful decision to finish for the day. You could go on and on and on and on. And yeah, so it's crazy how for some, I'm fortunate enough to be able to survive and do music entirely, full time and not have to lean on anything else. But for a long time, I was having to kind of do other things, and it was yeah, it almost got to kind of boiling point where I was like, yeah, I haven't really got enough time to do anything else here. So yeah,
So are you like the only one in the family that is musical, or is mom and dad musical?
No,
Or
I'm very, very fortunate. I come from a massive musical family on my mother's side. They were in a family band. They were an Irish folk band. Did I covered the Dubliners and stuff like that. So I grew up. They were actually in a family. My mother's maiden name is Shea, Shea, and she was in sort of a family band with my grandfather and my great uncle to begin with, and then the different generations kind of joined. And then by the time I joined, I was the third generation within the family band. There was seven of us. So there was my mum, my cousin, my great uncle, my auntie, my uncle. There was me. Who am I missing? I think that's. I probably there's that many of us. I forget, but there was about seven of us, and we used to go out and do different folk clubs. And yeah, it was my first introduction into music. Really, I was really fortunate because I grew up within households where there'd always be an instrument lying around, and then even as a child, I'd always walk into different rehearsals, and it was as raw as it gets in the form of music and playing live because it'd always be kind of 99% of the time it'd be unplugged and stuff and doing different folk clubs and very intimate venues where you could hear a pin drop and just doing it for the love of doing it as well. So I was very fortunate to grow up with that much music surrounding me.
so did that then translate then into you wanting to go see shows then and going to concerts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, just it was almost kind of put to me subconsciously, doing different folk festivals and stuff, and being surrounded by so much music, and naturally helped me kind of just fall into playing live as well in front of people. I guess for a lot of people, trying to drop someone into a room and say, right, you're going to play live or you're going to sing in front of these people. For some, I didn't realize until I was a lot older that is such a rare alien thing to a lot of people and would be terrifying. Um, I just thought it was a normal thing. I was like, oh, I'll just get up in front of these people because I was so used to seeing it and being involved in it. Um, so it kind of, yeah, I was really lucky in that sense. And then it transcended into me, growing up as a teenager and picking up a guitar just because there was that many around. My granddad showed me, how to play guitar, a few tricks and stuff like that. And it was a weird one for me because I guess it's one thing me getting into music in the first place. But then there's so many different avenues I could have gone down in music. Um, there's so many. I could have just been a guitar player. I could have just wanted to be a tribute act. I could have just done covers. I could have just wanted to be comfortable or do it for fun or play at home. But for me, very early on, and I'm talking like the first couple of months of ever picking a guitar up, I was writing a song. Um, so I could barely even play anyone else's songs, and I remember knowing a few chords. And straight from the off, I was kind of using the guitar as a tool almost naturally to just start writing songs. And that wasn't forced at all. That just came to me like almost instantly. I could barely play the guitar um, before I was, you know, writing my first song. So it came naturally.
So are you typically then now, are you more of a lyrics first and then music, or are you more of a music first and then lyrics when you write a song?
uh, so definitely melody first. I'll often go down the sort of route of having a melody in my head, whether I'm humming it or whistling it. And this could come at me at any time. I find if I'm doing something in a bit of a flow state where I'm not really thinking, if I'm out for a run, if I'm making food, I'm out walking somewhere, and I'm not really focusing on anything in particular. That's often when melody ideas will sometimes pop in my head, and then it's up to me to make sure I record it on my phone or get it down because it'll only pop into my head for a brief moment, and then if I don't remember it, it's gone forever, and it's a nightmare when you forget it. Um, and yeah, I guess from there I'll pick up a guitar, sometimes I'll do a mix of both. I'll try and strum through some chords and try and put something to that, or I'll just try and play around a melody idea that I've had in my head with nothing around.
And then once you kind of develop some sort of song structure, some sort of, semblance of a song, at what point then do you bring it to the band then? Or typically at
Uh,
what point do you bring it to the
it's
band?
changed over time. So
Okay.
to begin with, I would often take songs that I'd written on my acoustic guitar into the rehearsal room, and then there'd be times when it would just be a case of us figuring it out there and then how it's going to work in a full band, which was fun. It was good. And then as times went on, and I've realised the best way of everything kind of progressing musically for me as an artist is to work intensely with one person that it works well with, which is Matt Walsh, which I'm very fortunate is on board and we're massively with the project creatively and behind the music with me and the production of things. So me and Matt and I've gone down the route now of kind of sculpting out demos and things. I'll take an idea in. Everything will always everything so far has always started on my acoustic guitar as an idea, whether it be a nearly finished song or just a chorus, or maybe even just a verse idea. We've just tried to build out as many demos as possible. And then from there, then we'll kind of head into the studio. This is what's been happening recently over the last sort of year, 2 years, is we're heading to the studio. We'll send the guys the demo and then they'll put down, everything the best they possibly can with their instrument from the demo. And then they'll throw in, they've got a couple of their own little twists or ideas on it. But we've tried to just sculpt out the songs as best we can. So I'm fortunate that I've been able to work in a capacity with Matt where, sometimes it's been consecutive days, week in, week out, just to make sure there's as much attention to detail within the recording of a song as possible before it even goes to the studio for tracking. And it's paying off now, I feel like, with the quality of the records we're producing and writing.
What is the access and the ease of access to getting studio time for you in particular?
Yeah, Matt rents a little bit of a studio space in Newcastle, which is about 50 minutes from me. So, if anything, it's been really easy. Been really fortunate that we haven't had to hire. So what we do is we'll use that room to record demos and sometimes just drafts and rough ideas. Matt will then put together a sort of a rough mix, and then we'll get it to as good as it possibly can be as a demo and a rough mix. In some senses, if I was to play it to if I was to play these rough mixes and these rough demos, if I was to play them, I've done it before. I played it to friends or whatever. What do you think of this? And they'd be like, "Well, that's finished. It's finished. Put it on Spotify." I'll put it on Apple Music. What's going? It sounds like a finished song, and I'm like, "It's not." Like that's how much work we've done on it. So we get them to a place where we've added as much as we possibly can into a point where we can then go to the label and we can go to management and stuff like that and grab everyone's kind of opinion. And then overall, it's obviously my opinion is what matters the most. But then I like to get I've got a highly trusted, really good, hard-working team around me, so I like to get everyone's opinions and what direction we're gonna go in and what's gonna work best and stuff like that. So it's a whole kind of conveyor belt of different kind of a whole conveyor belt, I guess, of structured systems that kind of work together on getting an idea from my acoustic guitar right up to a point where it's ready to be released. But I'm enjoying it as well.
Yeah. Well, as you should, right?
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, I'd see you'd be surprised how many people just end up hating it. It's like, oh, I hate this. It's so stressful and stuff. You got to remember why you did it in the first place, why you started.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So we talked about this before we recorded. I think this is so important, and you kind of touched on this already. It's one thing to write a great song, and it's one thing to go through that whole process of finishing, of draft and all that stuff. But if no one hears it, is it a great song? And like talk about that part of it because, in an industry and in a profession where like what we do and what you do brings so many people together. It's so difficult and it's so frustrating for me as a fan that there's so many things that hold you back from allowing you to
Oh
do
yeah,
that.
I've learned. I've come from a mindset of this comes down to me having such a great team around me as well. But I've always had the mindset of you never ever stop learning, and I've learned a tremendous amount in even especially in the last sort of 2 years as things have really started picking up momentum. Um, but one probably the biggest thing I've realised is how many different components they are to take into consideration as a and stay consistent with as an artist as a whole. It's like you start off thinking it's just I'll write a song and I'll release it and then I'll share it with people and then that'll be it. And it's like that is minuscule. That is absolutely minuscule compared to everything else that you have to do. The ins and outs of making sure everything is accounted for. And I feel like I've learned, probably the number one factor of why people end up quitting and don't pursue it is just because you kind of realize how many different things have to be taken into consideration to progress as an artist. And people realize that actually, whoa, I don't want no part of this. So you learn as you go. It separates the people. I feel like, artists who end up being, I would say this about, majority of artists who we now see as, you know, majorly successful on a global scale have gone will have definitely I would say will have definitely gone at least 99% of them will have gone through a journey where they've hit a crossroads and been like is this worth the pursuit almost of wanting to get to this what I'm going through at the moment or the ups and downs of it all or the sacrifice of me not ever being able to have a routine life or have a life where I can book things in advance with friends or family. That goes out the window because you don't realize how much stuff's going to get thrown at you and stuff. And I feel like it separates all artists go through a crossroads where you kind of think, is this worth it? And then the ones who you kind of see now who are successful on a global scale will have been the ones who have always gone, yeah, it is worth it. And there'll still be a lot of artists who still try now and never get anywhere. I think it's the hardest part about being an artist is the endless pursuit and willingness to kind of persevere through difficult times without any kind of confirmation of it actually working out. It's like it's mad. It's actually madness, really. It's like it's complete madness. You have to be a little bit, in the best way possible. You have to be a little bit mental.
So speaking of mental, are there any topics that you won't cover in a song, or are there any topics that you feel like are taboo?
Um, Try to stay away from like politics and stuff. Not because I'm not someone who's open for political discussion or putting stuff out there. I just think it's so. I'm still young. It's so ever changing. I wouldn't want to put something out in the world that's strongly opinionated out of the fear of it becoming a giant sort of
Distraction.
distraction and then it becoming an identity for me. It's not something I want to build my identity off. I think there's different artists, there's different bands who that is their identity. That's what they work well with. For me, I just think it's ever changing, and I wouldn't want to put something out permanently into the world at the moment anyway. That might end up changing, and because you can you can go down a rabbit hole of building your entire identity off something, off strong opinions about something that's kind of globally thought about, like politics and stuff like that. But saying that, there's other things, within a similar narrative that are quite hard to talk about or tough topics to write about and especially release about because it hits home with a lot of people, like death and stuff like that and even suicide and stuff and tough moments that I'm very open to writing about and sharing, just from like personal experience. And there's an epidemic of definitely mental health struggles and suicide where I'm from, that I've kind of grown up with, and I feel like the more awareness I can share about that through music, it came naturally to me when writing. I didn't really like go out and think I want to write a song about this. It's just something that I ended up naturally writing about as I was, really in a creative release, definitely an emotional release as well. So it naturally kind of went down in that direction with a lot of my writing. So there's this, yeah, not much in that sense that I kind of wouldn't write about or, delve into. But I think the only one is probably politics at the moment, really.
Well, and that's the thing too, like with songs, just as much as concerts, they're timestamps, like
Of
you
course,
release
yeah.
that song, it's what you're feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what you might feel in the moment 20 years from now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think one of the only things that can really cement an identity around you. And then once it's out there and that's your identity, it's hard to shed that identity. Do you know what I mean? Especially in music, if you built yourself up. People do, there's a few people now where they seem to have completely changed direction and stuff, but I wouldn't want to put myself in a position where I build myself up in a narrative or an identity that I'm not 100% on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's especially important for being an indie artist as well. So I
Yeah.
want to talk about this Cool Rivers. What do they do and how have they really helped you with your career?
Oh, Cool Rivers is fantastic. It's led by Jude, who has been amazing bringing me on board. She started out as a photographer. She's worked with some huge acts. I think one of the first images I saw of her was backstage with Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones. So she's been a very successful photographer for some time, and she's now started a platform called Cool Rivers, which is essentially it's spread wide scale across multiple industries. But I'm obviously involved in the music side of things, and it's basically it's kind of evolving over time, and it will probably change over time as well. But the way I'm using it at the moment is it's a kind of exclusive online fan zone that people can sign up to via email, and then they can get personal. They can interact with me on a personal scale. So it's like for me, there's always been a difference in me when I used to have social media, personally, and it would be nothing to do with music, and it would just be me, sharing and interacting with friends and not worrying about marketing or putting myself out there as an artist. There's a massive difference between that and then, me as an artist. And it's kind of really combines the two for me. I'll still obviously keep it all involved with music, but then it's very much sort of, if you were to log in and be part of my community, the whole point of it is to be able to interact with me on a much more personal scale where, there's voice notes on there. I've been doing some weekly roundups in a blog style, so people know what I've been doing very much behind the scenes. And then the kind of goal with it is to build up a fan base, sort of exclusive community, tight community on there. And it gives artists a chance to be able to interact with the fans without any, interruption from algorithms and stuff like that. And it's almost like the best components of like mailing lists and stuff like that. but then built into a sort of platform. Um, but then the difference is between Cool Rivers and every other platform or similar platform, will be eventually it's going to be a place where fans can purchase sort of digital and physical merchandise and then they can build a collection. So, say you and I, let's use Muse for an example, because Muse is what we spoke about earlier with the Bastille Boys. But say if we were huge fans of Muse, and Muse were on there, and they said, right, we're going to release a demo song that no one's ever heard before, and it's going to be the file for it, and then we're going to release 100 of them. And if you're one of the ones who it's on sale in 5 minutes, going to go live on my Cool Rivers platform, and you guys can purchase it for however much. Could be anything from well, if it's Muse, it's probably a lot more expensive, but you can purchase it, and then once they're all gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
And then that will go into your collection digitally, and then they can do the same with videos or images. But then also, I think as things progress, it can be a good way to sell one-off sort of T-shirts. And then the best thing about it for me as an up-and-coming artist is because things are early on and people have been fans. It's a place where fans can get heavily involved. The money that'll eventually be made from it is in real time helping with my career and me progress as an artist. So, I speak about Muse, but I don't think Muse, I can't speak for Muse, but I don't think they're in a position where they'd be worrying financially about, about anything. But for me, when you're kind of wanting to put together tours, you wanting to fund merchandise, fund going out on the road with the band and stuff, fund everything from marketing your new music to this and that. If fans can have some form of involvement in funding that, but then they're also getting something back in the form of exclusive pieces of merchandise, whether that be digitally or physically, then it's the perfect sort of the perfect little cycle for me. So that's Cool Rivers in a nutshell.
Yeah, it is a great concept. I think it takes the fan club idea and makes it more personal and
Yeah,
more, I think, interactive. So I
yeah,
think that's a
100%.
great thing. And I think
Yeah.
that leads to then you're almost creating like ambassadors for your music, because
No, yeah,
all these fans are what you would consider more like super fans.
yeah.
So, you're it's kind of like a win-win for everybody, right?
Ambassador is a great terminology actually that you've used there. I might have to opt into Jude and say that people should be given ambassador badges the more stuff they buy or
Absolutely.
interact with.
Sure.
It's great, yeah. It's exactly like that, and it's perfect for me as well because I've been able to get the opinion of fans before stuff goes out as well. Like
Sure.
for an example, one of the first things I did on there when I got people to sign up was I put a poll out and said, "Where do you want me to play in the UK for my tour?" And there was a voting system, so I could see firsthand before I'd even made the decision of committing to playing different areas in the UK. I could see, Bristol's had a big spike, and there's a lot of people in Bristol who want to come and see me. And then that kind of shapes your decisions as an artist. So not only are fans given the chance to make an impact and help with the progression of me as an artist, they're also heavily involved in the decision making in some ways because they're able to share their opinions on where I want to go next or what the next decision is in some sense. So it's kind of the perfect fan to artist platform.
Yeah. And
Perfect
it's kind of
connection.
like, yeah, it's almost kind of like what's the word? You're I can't think of the word, but it's almost I kind of like if you're there's an app in the United States called Patreon.
Yeah, I've heard of Patreon. Yeah, it's similar to Patreon. Yeah, it's
Similar,
got a
right?
lot of similar things to Patreon. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think. I haven't really delved into Patreon as much, to be honest. Um, but just because I've been involved in Cool Rivers from the very beginning, so I've seen Jude, I've seen her sort of vision, seen how passionate she is about artists being able to kind of keep hold of their data as well. We live in an age where there's giant corporations who are involved in so much of an artist's, touring and merchandise and music. It's almost like when you kind of imagine, you release a piece of something or yourself as an artist. By the time, talking metaphorically, if it goes down a conveyor belt and everyone takes their piece of it, by the time it gets to the end and you go to the end and get back what you actually originally started with, you're almost left with nothing. And this, I'm talking in terms of, when you're heading out touring and you want to keep in contact with people who bought tickets to see you. It's a data protection thing where it's bizarre to me. I don't know what it's like in America, but you might put on a tour and then people you can't. There's a lot of time I couldn't keep in contact with anyone who bought tickets to my show because of data protection, but then the venue could keep in contact with them. It's like, hang on a minute. These people bought tickets to see me. Like, why if anyone can keep in contact with them via email, I think it should be the artist. You know what I mean? But then, yeah, there's loads of hoops to jump through. There's obviously the whole thing going on with how much of a percentage ticket and websites take as well. That's a whole other podcast. But yeah, it's crazy time.
The other
So
thing the other I don't know if this is happening or you've dealt with this personally, but I know that this is happening in the United States where and bands have told me this, where venues are taking cuts of their merchandise sales.
yeah, it's massive in the UK. I think it's getting a little bit better now, just because there was a lot of organisations that shed light on it and made people aware, and then fans especially weren't aware, and they were like, when they kind of brought it to light, fans were like, "What? Like that is crazy."
As
And
high as
then
40%.
yeah, it's
Like
like that. It's like that here as well. Ridiculous. It's like I said earlier on about it's so difficult to tour and progress nowadays because all the way up, if you take out arenas and stadiums, but then if you kind of go down each level below that, you would think that it would get easier and easier, but it actually gets harder and harder, which is backwards to me. Just because of how difficult it is and how many different costs you have to take into consideration. But then on top of that, when you kind of get to like we spoke about earlier, start getting to the 1,000 to 3,000 cap, and then beyond as well, is especially probably the arenas that take a massive cut as well with merch. That's why you'll see prices hiked up. But to take 40% off an artist, who's in a position where the number one way they're actually being able to survive and make a profit on a tour is merchandise. To take 40% off that, it's almost like just setting someone up to fail. So I've been fortunate that I'm early on still, and there's a lot of venues who don't do that, and I'm very thankful for it. I'm very grateful for it. And but it's depleting as an artist if you find that out or whatever, or you get to the end of a tour and you think you've worked so hard and put so much money into the marketing to sell these venues out, and then who knows how much these venues actually make on the bar and stuff like that as well, for them only to turn around and say, well, there's this cost, there's that cost, and it's like, really? So it's really tough. But again, then it's a spiral where it's a complicated spiral. If I had it my way, I do like the idea of certain. I think there was talk. I don't know what it's like in the US, but there was talks of certain percentages from much higher up with the stadiums or the arenas, certain percentage has almost been taken out to the point where you don't really realise they're that small. But like that being taken out and solely directly put back into the grassroots music venues. So there's like something there. There's a pot there. And I'll say wholeheartedly, I'm speaking from an artist who's much earlier, like in the early stages of things. But I will say this right now: I would be more than happy to give a small percentage of my earnings as a mega successful artist doing massive arenas and stadiums. I would be more than happy to give a little bit of that back to, if it meant, especially if it meant giving it back to very small venues, that I've came through myself personally, that I know artists are going to struggle touring with or navigating the way through as they kind of progress. So if it means giving a little bit back when you get there to help it all kind of flow, then that's something I'm massively passionate about and want to get to a point where I can help as well.
Yeah. Well, and then to add insult to injury, it's not just the venues, it's not just the merchandise, but then it's trying to get a ticket, like the whole ticketing system
Yeah, yeah.
just
And then
seems so broken.
there's databases that end up just taking a ludicrous amount, and then there's ticketing touts, and then they resell tickets for 4 to 5 times the price. It's broken, isn't it? It's entirely broken. That's there's just giant. It's kind of corrupt giant organizations that have gotten to a point where they're so big that it's just almost impossible to compete with. So something needs to change in that sense. But the only way something like that can be kind of ultimately defeated is by
The people.
the people coming
Yeah.
together, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it kind of, because it's got that far now where it's almost ridiculous. So I'm hoping there's not really anywhere it can go surely to make it worse. I'm hoping it kind of there's something that kind of comes into place that can overcome all the difficulty of that and the corruptness of that and how bad it's got. And whoever does pull it off, if they do pull it off, is going to have one hell of a battle to go through to make sure it becomes successful. But I'm behind them wholeheartedly, because it has gotten to a point now where it's just crazy. It's like you try, and I've done it firsthand as a music fan as well, where you if you miss out on tickets, the only way to get them is by paying £900 or whatever instead of £80. It's like, hang on a minute. It's just this, and then it's just people who bought them via bots or whatever, to a point where they've bought hundreds of them to just sell on to make a profit. It's crazy. It's broken in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about so one of my favorite all-time British bands is Oasis. And
Yeah,
they are finally, we'll see if it
back.
actually
I'm
happens.
going. I'm going to see them, and I'm going to see them in Wembley.
Are you seeing them at Wembley? Which night?
Mm.
First night?
I think it's the
Okay.
second night. Yeah. Yeah, mega excited for that though.
So, well, my question was to you though. I just saw, I guess that Liam, and of course, Liam's always talking, but he said that like I guess that if you're expecting like a 2 hour, 2.5 hour Oasis set for this tour, that you might be disappointed. Like, and I saw
Yeah,
Jack White said something about set lists a couple weeks ago, how like fans have become like enamored with this 2.5 hour, 3 hour set for bands. And he's like, remember, like the Beatles and like the Rolling Stones in the 60s, they played like 45-minute sets. But like
mm,
my point to that is, well, yes, they played 45-minute sets because they didn't have the amount of music that these bands
mm.
have now, the catalog of music. And also, like fans were only paying $2 to see a show. Like now
Yeah,
fans
of
are
course.
paying hundreds
Yeah,
and hundreds of dollars. Like, what's your take on that?
I mean, I've come from a position where I have played in hundreds, if not thousands of pubs for different occasions, or just pubs in general coming up, where there's been times where I had like a little residency in a tapas bar, different bars and stuff like that. I've played thousands of shows just as a cover artist and learning my trade, growing up. Where I've played for 3 hours, 3.5 hours. I think the longest I did was just under 4 hours with one 20-minute break, just because I was good friends with the owner. We kind of got to a point where we kind of knew if I stopped, people would leave, and I didn't want to. I was enjoying myself. He was happy to pay me extra, pay me more, and so there was times where I'd stay on for prolonged amounts of time, and then that was doing something that ultimately I didn't want to do long term. So, as far as it goes with sets now, it's my own music. It's fans who paying good money to come and see me. They've travelled far and wide as well. If they want a 2 hour set, I'm happy to do that. I'm more on the same wavelength as Bruce Springsteen, so you've got more chance of seeing me probably playing for too long than you have for too little. And people complain and go, he's been on for 3.5 hours now. Can you stop, please? I'm more along there, but no one's doing that at Bruce Springsteen. May I add? I'm giving that as an example. But yeah, I think I'm on the wavelength of Bruce Springsteen, where I would much rather play for a long time. I don't care. I think I would love to get to a point as well where I can play for that long and people are still loving it, like Bruce does. So yeah, I'm probably. Well, I haven't actually looked into that, what he said or anything like that. I've heard about it briefly, and then what you just said there. But I would probably be of the opposite opinion.
Yeah. So let's talk about Chelsea and Wood Management and what she has done for you career-wise in particular, and then just how that relationship has kind of evolved since you started.
Yeah, she probably like the closest person to me after my parents, really, and my siblings and my family. I probably speak to her more than anyone in my whole life. It's she's came on board and done absolute wonders for me as an artist. I can't, I probably don't tell her enough just because of how much workload we both have and you can get. But then, I think she knows anyway, like how grateful I am for her coming on board and all that she does for me. She goes above and beyond, because a little bit before, she came on board as a manager, I was navigating my way through this industry that I didn't have any idea about, and I'm still learning about as time goes on, and had no structure or no organization. But I'm grateful for that time, because me putting myself out there that much in the form of content and putting music out there got me to a position where people like Chelsea were obviously navigated towards me, because they could see the potential, I guess. But the belief she's had from day one within me as an artist and as a person as well, and how much she's gone above and beyond to build structure, build the infrastructure for this whole project, and link ups and stuff, and build the relationships, and the vision she's had has been incredibly inspiring, and motivating for me. I feel like as much as I started this project alone and, thought I was doing well, I didn't really realize how much I prefer having someone like that to work alongside and work off, and, we keep each other motivated. And yeah, really grateful, because for me personally, I can't, share enough the importance of a good manager and a good team of people around you. And with the right people, that's when things start moving. And I feel like truly without her kind of coming on board, I would not be where I am now, and I definitely wouldn't be on the journey and progression and more, a momentum that I'm on now. I can say that like hands down. So really grateful for Chelsea from Wood Management.
Do you think that you would have done South by without her?
No, no way, no way. I would probably. What the way where I was at, I was doing. I was doing well. I was out. I did do a little tour and stuff like that. I lost a ton of money on it. Um, just had no idea really about how to really properly plan anything because I didn't set out to do this to take on everything that a manager takes on. So to do that along, I just wanted to play music and make content and stuff like that. But then like trying to reach out and build the relationships and the planning and the system and strategy that you have to kind of build is I didn't ever start this to do that. So her coming on board and doing that was was perfect really. I think before she came on board I was doing as much as I possibly could, but then kind of going round in circles because I didn't have the knowledge to, you know, I didn't have the knowledge to reach out in the correct ways to anyone to take it further in an industry sense. So it was kind of like screaming, at the top of a mountain where it doesn't matter how loud you kind of scream or how much you put yourself out there if you're not putting the correct strategy or systems in place to reach the right people within the industry to really progress, then it just won't work. It's kind of just falls on itself. So without her, yeah, I think I have everything to thank. Everything that's happened so far and everything that will continue to happen, I'm sure, is down to how good of a relationship I have with my manager.
Yeah. So as a good looking in your 20s dude, right? I mean, do you have I've only heard horror stories and I've just read in the news about like the UK tabloids. Are they as bad as everybody says they are? Are they pretty brutal when it comes to celebrities and like musicians?
Yeah, it seems like you get built up in this country. What I've found, and I'm sure a lot will agree, you with the news, they build you up as much as they possibly can to knock you down. Rarely do I see anyone kind of get built up and celebrated, and then that's it. They're like, right, that's it. It's always we'll build you up, we'll celebrate you, we'll build a profile up, because it gives us more and more ammunition to knock you down at some point. And then obviously with some newspapers, well, I think it's becoming more and more evident now, probably internationally across the world as well, how you just don't trust the news. Really, you don't trust news outlets, especially newspapers. A lot of the time, you can get your information now from kind of listening to the people you want to kind of learn about firsthand on stuff like podcasts and stuff. Really, if you really want to know a person or you really want to know a person's opinions, because podcasts have now kind of got to the point, well, they're way beyond the reach of what the news actually has. Millions and millions, some of the podcasts out there, millions and millions, probably billions of viewers and listeners, and you're actually hearing, and learning about people's opinions and what's the ins and outs of certain things firsthand there and then from the source. So it's like, why would you? And then obviously there's you can go as far as saying that this news outlets that are funded or by certain companies and stuff like that. So the entire narrative is not based off the truth. I don't think it ever has been, but I don't know what it's like in the US. But yeah, with a lot of the stuff in the UK, it's like is these corporations or is these news outlets, how much are they linked and how much is the whole narrative of what they're going to put out there to the public based off the truth, and how much is it actually based off the people at the top swaying people's swaying or putting in their input. So it's It's sad, really, but people, I guess, since 2020 as well, a lot of people have woken up to that, to you know, well. I'm hoping that people have got a little bit more intelligent with it now, and have a bit more realization on the news and stuff, and what don't take things firsthand just off reading the news outlet.
So let's go back a little bit in time. I want to go back to during the pandemic because
Yeah,
you're still a musician at that point, right? You're
yeah.
still kind of up and coming. How did the country of England kind of react to the whole COVID situation? I know how
It
our
was a bit,
country did, but how did you
yeah.
guys?
It was a bit of a mess. It was lots of different, um, a wide range of different opinions and stuff like that, and people taking it differently. Mine was a really strange time, but a really great time. I'm fortunate for. I mean, not just great in a sense of I was a musician, and then I knew I wasn't going to get any gigs or anything like that. Um, I just kind of kick-started my project actually as a solo artist. I'd just started coming to like the idea of being like, I want to start releasing music and go and put myself out there as an artist, a solo artist. So I was writing songs and stuff, but I had no idea what I was doing at all. And when I mean I had no idea what I was doing, like I didn't even know how to upload a song to anything really. I just knew how to share a Facebook status or an Instagram post, and that was about it. That's as far as my knowledge stretched. So yeah, it kind of gave me a sense of being able to take the time to really figure out what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. Because before, I truly think without COVID, I wouldn't have had the time. I was just going down. Without even realizing, I was heading down a kind of path of wanting, to achieve these things, but then I was never probably truly going to be able to do it just because I never had the time or took the time mentally and physically, to actually get to work with it and figure out what I wanted to do. I was just kind of wanting to get to a good place in music and become successful, but then filling all my time up with going to open mics and playing pubs and stuff, and never taking any time out to focus on myself as an artist and figure out a plan on how I was going to progress. So in that sense, when I say it was a great time, it was a great time for me to be able to sit back and go, right, this is how I'm going to do it. And then things kind of took off locally in that time as well, a little bit from nothing to something, because I did about 5 to 6 months work in the hospital. I knew I wasn't going to be able to go out and make money through music, so I took a job on in the hospital. So I was shot into my job was to go around the different sluice rooms, scrubs, and clean them. So it was like where the waste and everything went, I was cleaning them. And then my mother is a nurse as well. She works in the neonatal unit, which is the special, like the intensive care unit for premature babies, which is like one of the craziest, most intense wards. So I was going to work with my mother for a while, which is like, looking back now, it's almost like an alternate universe. But it was a good time because I moved back in. My parents and stuff, my sisters were both home as well. They weren't at university or anything because they were in the last year of school. And it gave me time to just hit a reset. But at the same time, I was working at the hospital. I was amongst a lot of the craziness that was going on. They shut off half the hospital to make an entirely quarantined section for COVID patients. There was a lot of people dying left, right, and centre, as we know. My dad got really ill to the point where he nearly died as well. It was an intense time, very, very weird, intense time. But then it made me as a human, it put us into fight or flight mode, where I was like, I can either use this to my advantage and as motivation to be better and get better in every way, or I can let it defeat me. And I'm fortunate that I've always had that mindset, and that no matter what, it doesn't really matter what's thrown at me, I'll always find a way to try and flip it on its head and get out of it, or get the most out of it, or salvage what I can. That's gonna help me progress out of it. So yeah, it was a weird time, but for me personally, overall, it helped me reset as an artist and as a human, and I'm kind of quite fortunate for it. I'm just on a podcast. That's my dad coming in. Yeah, you'll be on it going hello. But yeah, that was it was a crazy time. So
Yeah.
it was
Well,
good.
you spoke about the professional support that you've had, obviously with Chelsea, with Cole Rivers, with Adam, right? Was it Adam?
Yeah, Adam
Yeah.
Adam Marsden, who's been behind the creative visual side of stuff.
Right.
So
But what about like, I mean, you got to have that support from the family too. Like, so talk
yeah,
about that. I mean, like you said about, your mom was in a family band, you guys were in a family band growing up. Like, let
well,
the audience know about that.
yeah, it's important to have that because it's important to have friends and family like that because the first time you go out and start playing live, it's often just rooms filled with people, and family. So it's incredibly important to have that around you. And then it gives you that sense of confidence moving forward. Even though looking back, you can start playing those rooms to begin with. And to you, you're like, I can't believe I've sold this out. But then in retrospective, you look at like the 50 people who are there, every single one of them or whatever. So it's important though to have those moments and have that support to begin with, because without it, there's no progression at all to even go off. And it helps you realize moving forward as well as things progress. It helps you have a realization of the growth you've gone through. Because I remember I've done it from the very beginning. I've done it from like a 30 cap room to 50 cap room to 100 cap. I did 300 and did 550, which is the last one I did. And then I'm sure like a little bit later this year, I might end up doing probably do 1200 to 1500. And each time, I remember it wasn't until I kind of did 150 to 300 when I started looking around the room and I was going, hang on a minute, all of these people have paid to see me and they're fans of what I do, but I don't actually know the majority of them. And that's when you start you have a really nice realization as an artist that you are creating something here that people are getting on board with. And even if it is, 100 people, it's still like a really nice moment. I hope if there's anything I could wish for every single artist every single songwriter or artist to go through, it's that little realization moment when you kind of go, hang on, I've got fans here. Because even on a small scale, it's amazing.
Yeah. So let's talk about the work-life balance because it sounds like you work a lot. How do you
Yeah.
relax? How do you, get away from it all? And like, is it important to have like, or maybe is it not important, but like, is it more difficult now to like have a relationship with someone or like to have a romantic relationship with, or like, is that not
Mm.
in your wheelhouse right now because of, your focus on your
Yeah,
career?
it's very difficult. I'm fortunate to have a really good partner, Sophie. She's been with me through from when I didn't really have a clue what I was doing, and it was all just a bit of a goal or a bit of a dream to then seeing it unravel firsthand as things have progressed. I've been quite fortunate. She's been supportive, but it does have its difficult times, obviously, with family and with relationships, because it's not, you can't compare it to, there's not really anyone who can have an understanding of the situation you're in unless you're in it, if that makes sense. So it's like, it's not as easy as being like, we're going to book this vacation in the summer this year. For a normal person, it would be, all right, I'll head to my employer or my work. I'll say, I want to put this holiday in. And then that's it. And then for me or an upcoming artist, it's like, well, I haven't got anything right now, but then what happens if so and so, this artist comes forward or this festival comes forward, and then I've ended up picking the only day or the only week of the year where I could have been on this amazing show, or I'm on holiday and I've done it to myself, and it's so much pressure on that, and sacrifice that you have to kind of take, and balance an act. So it's making it's kind of it's tough because it's it's trying to keep everything happy, but then at the same time, the only real way, I truly think anyway, of making a huge success of not only music but anything is by going through a period of time where it's the only kind of real thing that you actually focus on,
Mm.
or which is hard. But then if you've got the right people around you, or good people around you, then they'll be there at the end of it,
Yeah.
whether as well. And I've realised that a lot of the time, if I've got mates who I've been mates with at the beginning of it, and as time's gone on and I haven't been free to head out every weekend, or I've had to turn things down because I've been touring and stuff like that. And then I've had friends who drift away, and I've had friends who don't care, and they're there at the end of it, and they're the right people. They're the people you kind of care about. And yeah, people. It's important to have people around you that believe in you and stuff. And then that's all that matters, I think. And then, well, all that truly matters is your own thoughts and opinions on and your own motivation. So, but it's difficult to balance. I'm still struggle with it now. I felt, especially this year and over the last 6 months, everything kind of derives with how well you look after yourself. Everyone thinks, when they think of touring and music and stuff, you think of, have you seen the film The Dirt? Yeah,
Motley
everyone
Crue,
thinks,
baby.
yeah, Motley Crue. Everyone's like, it's Motley Crue. We're gonna go out. We're gonna get hammered every night. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. It's gonna be every day is gonna be amazing. It's like if you can try that. I'm afraid in this day and age, it's like you either just come across as obnoxious or just an absolute idiot, and then your mental health is just down the gutter, and you can't continue because it's there's so many other things that you need to take in consideration nowadays. It's not just touring and having the best time of your life. You can do that, but you need to be, well, for me anyway. It's like my mental health's not up to what it should be. It's so much harder to stay motivated and just stay strong as well within the dips that you have, and just keep focused, and yeah, and keep on track. It's hard, but yeah, the more I look after myself in the form of, whether it be, feeling and, looking my best in the form of eating well and looking after myself, not drinking all the time, stuff like that, and exercising a bit. That bleeds into everything else I do. And I would like to eventually get to a point where I can be a bit of an advocate for that, to be honest, because it doesn't get talked about enough. Still,
Yeah.
now I go into my old college, um, which is, I guess it's up to 18 in the UK. So I don't know whether that's like last stages of high school
Mhm. Yep.
in America. I speak to the students there. It's the third year. I'm going to be doing it this year, and they're so oblivious to like how much actually goes into something. And like I understand, because I was like that once as well, where you just kind of think, well, music is just the best time ever, all the time, every minute of every day is amazing. It's a party. You just do what you want. It's like, well, unfortunately, it all has consequences and stuff. And yeah, You need to keep a good balance of everything. But I think it all stems from looking after yourself.
So, I mean, obviously, in England, yeah, in the early '90s, or wait, I guess it was, when was the EDM kind of like club scene? That was like early
I was like
'90s.
'90s, early '90s. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
I
I mean,
was
obviously, a
before
lot of,
my time. Before
yeah.
my time, but I've seen that was a crazy time. And then even the Oasis era was like, used to be cool to like fling a TV out your hotel room window and stuff, take loads of drugs, just hammer it all on a tour bus and have everything you've ever wanted. And it's like Yeah, it might be fun, but then it's like, what's the longevity of that? Do you know what I mean? Or what's the not what's like the consequences there and then, because that's not what people see. What people don't see is the long term consequences. What's the long term consequences? A lot of the time, it's giant hiatuses for many, 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 many years when you could have happily been continuing to tour and do things, or it's long stretches of rehab, or it's relationships that'll never be able to be rekindled after they've been broken through it, whether that be your own personal relationships or your work relationships, you know. So it's about having, again, it all comes back to balance, because I like to enjoy myself. I like to, if I'm celebrating something or I've hit a milestone, it's always nice to have a few drinks and enjoy myself with a band or my team or my family, especially my family. My family are, derived from Irish. We're massive drinkers. So it's yeah. But then as I've grown up a little bit, I realise if I want to make something of this, um, the longer I can be on the ball, the better.
Better chance
Because
you have. Yeah.
yeah, massively. Because it's all right to fall off and stuff, but then the less times you can do that, and a lot of the time when you do fall off, well, for me anyway, it's self-inflicted.
Yeah.
So
It's funny in
yeah.
this country, like we're seeing a lot of statistics and a lot of studies that people under the age of 25 are not drinking as much as like,
Oh yeah, I've seen that now. Yeah, I
yeah,
think I
and
was.
it's more like marijuana and more like over the counter like medications and
Mm,
anti-anxiety, it's
mm,
more like pharmaceutical stuff that people are
pharmaceutical stuff in it
taking.
is an alcohol.
Correct. Is that what you're seeing in England too, or?
Yeah, my brother. Chatting to my brother the other day, he doesn't drink. Or he's 18, and I've thought that's like prime time, really. Usually in this country, it's like turning 21 in the States. Like it's the only thing you want to do, even though people do it before. But it's like when you're legally able to, it's like you almost have that phase of being like, I'm going to go to the bar as many times as I can because I can do it now without any worry. Um, and he doesn't as well. And then yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether could be down to a lot of things. Um, it's interesting where that stemmed from. Really, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know whether there's been that many years now of madness that each generation has maybe been seeing how bad it can get or how bad things can get from it. That every little time there's a new generation that comes around, they're taking all the worst parts of what's came before, and then it's gotten to a point now where a lot of people are like, "Why would I want to do that?" You know what I mean? But then when if you can control things a bit more, and one thing I've found being grateful for is that I found myself that busy. A lot of like self-destructive behavior with alcohol and stuff like that. I'm only speaking from experience. Can stem from boredom as well, and not have enough going on in your life, or just
Goals. Yeah, like something that you want to like reach out for that alcohol will cause you to maybe not have that happen. Did I lose you?
definitely the case.
Yeah, there you go. I
Yeah, you
lost
got
you
me
for a
back.
second.
Yeah,
You're good.
you
Yeah,
got me.
you're
Sorry, you got me back.
good.
Yeah, no, it definitely stems from that, and I feel like I've been fortunate in the fact that the busier I've got, the easier it's been to kind of stay on the straight and narrow and just focus on the right things and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
So let's talk about some music. We haven't really talked about music. So
yeah, we haven't now.
yeah, the song that really got me, into you is the song Long Nights. I want to hear the story behind that song.
Yeah, Long Nights was an initial voice note idea that I put down on my phone as a chorus. There's going to be a little video that comes out soon on my YouTube channel, which is behind the song, which it'll be quite cool. I'll send you it over. Just finished. Well, Adam's finishing up the last little editing touches of it, but I was able to find the initial voice memo that I had. So it started out as just like the chorus. It always started with the chorus, which is interesting. It's never changed or altered. It was always the chorus. Oh, those long nights with you in my arms. It just stemmed from me I was listening to a lot of Marcus King, I was listening to a lot of the Eagles, and I wanted just this hard hitting kind of vocal stack, punchy chorus kind of thing. And it naturally just kind of, I initially put it down as a SoundCloud link, and I think I sent it to my manager. I sent it to Matt, who has been the producer behind the Embers EP that's coming out, which Long Nights is the first track on. And I think I initially put it in a SoundCloud link, and it was one of them where we just, nothing got said for ages. It was like, cool. We was keep writing, and then it wasn't until I got in the room with Matt and Billy as well, his electric guitar, on everything, that I played it. One of the first songs I played, I was like, this is one called Long Nights. I really like the sound of it. And then here's my idea. I want this really kind of tight harmony chorus. And then we kind of built it out as a demo. And it wasn't until we kind of built it out as a demo and added everything else to it and then played it to people when they were like, whoa, this is great. Because it's like, it's hard because sometimes, because I've got what my own, I have to really work hard to put across my ideas creatively without people hearing them at the very beginning, because people can't get into my mind creatively. But I know how I can kind of figure out the potential and how great a song could potentially sound in my own head, because it's what I've got as an idea. But then the only thing they hear is my voice and an acoustic guitar. So it's hard sometimes but over time, and especially with me and Matt being on such a similar wavelength now, when producing stuff, that we just kind of get it now. We know the belief we have in something turning out really well, whether we kind of, you need to protect an idea creatively in the early stages, because the right people should only kind of hear it way further on down the line. Unless you're heavily involved in the creative process of it and you're very aware of the different things that are going to come into play to turn it into what it can potentially be turned into, unless you're heavily involved with that and aware of it, you shouldn't hear anything, I don't think, until it's way further on down the line, because your opinion could drastically change from, I don't like this, or this doesn't sound that good, or it sounds a bit better, to, whoa, this is the best thing I've ever heard. It can completely be the same song from my acoustic guitar. Still a good song. Obviously, it needs to be a good song in its bare bones, but from turning something into a record, yeah, it's hard to translate a lot of the time to people in the early stages, the ideas. That's why we've worked so hard on building out demos and stuff. And Long Nights was something from the beginning where I just kind of I really liked it. I saw the vision I had for it, and then it kind of just spiraled from there, and then became a perfect opener for the EP.
What about Always? I want to hear the story about that song.
It always is like just a love song, really. I found myself writing a lot.
About Sophie?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I ended up writing a lot of songs prior to that about the frustrations of being in the area I'm in, and there's not much opportunity, and you have to work that extra bit hard to even be seen in the first place. And coming from, the industrial working class towns and trying to figure stuff out, and it being so complicated, and just persevering and being motivated. So I was writing a lot of angry stuff. Like Grey Skies is a little bit about that. And I thought, you know what, I'm writing so many angry songs. I might write I want to write a nice song. That's I love ballads. So yeah, drew on the situation out, I'm in, and that came quite naturally. And then released that, and then it's been a lot of people's weddings, turned into a lot of people's wedding songs, which is quite nice because that hasn't. It's an early song still. It's in the first EP, so it hasn't had like a massive amount of. There's not a large amount of people who've heard it, so I think it'd be interesting to see if that one ages well, in a sense of people getting hold of it and it becoming more and more people's wedding songs, which I think is great. To be honest, I didn't write it in that for that intention, but if that happens, it's amazing to me because it becomes a really special song for people. Yeah. And I love to see it as well. I love to see it being people's first dance songs. It's great.
Yeah, the power of music, my friend. The power of
Yeah,
music.
yeah, it's good.
Last song I want to talk about, Circles. I want to hear the story
Yeah,
about this song.
Circles was the first song I ever did. I was working with a guy. Well, I was very much on my own, and then first person I'd kind of reached out to, not really still having any idea about what I was doing or where I wanted to go. It was like I didn't have a single song out, did I? I did have Empty Promises out. It was like
Yeah.
the second song I ever put out, but um, yeah, I reached out to Stefan Atkinson, who's called. I knew him for a while. Nice guy, been around this around the local music scene, and then got together in his bedroom. And I was like, still figuring out I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do musically or what I wanted to do as an artist. I was just experimenting with stuff, and he had the idea for the song instrumentally. And then it was the first one of the first ever times I was in a room with someone and wrote a song there and then. There was like three other people in the song in the room. Sorry, three of the people in the room. He just played electric guitar part down to me, the verse and for the what was the verse and chorus, and then I just wrote the song, wrote the verses, and wrote the chorus. The choruses, wrote the entire song basically melodically and lyrically in about 10 minutes. And I thought that was the norm. I thought that was like, this is what people do, isn't it? And they were like, and the guys in the room were like, what the? What the?
So has
Um,
that happened with any other songs that you've written since?
yeah, it has done, but then there's rarely been a time I've ever done it like that again. Um, I think that's probably there's been. I've worked extensively with Billy on electric, where he's came in with a lot of ideas, but then since then it's always kind of been me getting an initial idea together just by myself with a guitar. That one was like solely me, not anything to do with guitar really. As an initial idea, just me, vocal and melody. So it's the only time that's ever happened, like entirely anyway. But I don't mind doing either really. I've always kept an open mind. I haven't got like a massive ego. I feel like I haven't got a huge ego about being protective and wanting to be the sole creator or not put anything out as 100% me. I feel like if you can mature as an artist and get to a point where if you're aware of your own ability, then you kind of have a much more open mind, and you like if the more talented people I can bring on board or collaborate with, the better, in my opinion. Still, as long as you can navigate, you can always push it back and navigate it, whatever ideas creatively, as long as you can have a final say creatively and you can, move it in the direction you want to move it in and be the sole creator on it in the sense of not letting it drift away from who you are as an artist and what you want to sound like. I don't think it matters if you. I'm never. The more people I can work with, the better.
Yeah.
I've worked with some fantastic people, some really talented people, and I hope that long continues. And I hope one day that I can be in a position where I can write for other people as well and create great songs for them, and just have even just a small input on songs that they're really proud of. It's all a giant journey, isn't it?
So are there any like contemporaries of yours that are English or that are British that you could envision doing a song with as like a duet, maybe like female singer?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. Like, it's too early to kind of speak on like artists that I would think would be great to collaborate with, just because of I'm like I would like to get to a point where I know full well debut album
Mm.
what my entire sound's going to go down the route of. But I love a lot of artists who are out there now. I love a lot of the country artists, but like British artists, contemporary sort of pop, I really like Olivia Dean. I think she's doing some amazing things. I really like, I don't think these are artists where they're different kind of genre to me. But then just if you think about them on a vocal sense, nowadays I feel like anyone can kind of collaborate with anyone. It's really interesting. Look at what Ed Sheeran did with the collaborations project when the amount of different artists he was with. Right, Olivia Dean's great. Ray is amazing. So many great voices out there. I'd be, I'd love to work with someone with, a big female voice. It'd be amazing, like I liked, I like it when like you create a huge sounding track with two big voices. I've always had quite a big sounding voice, like a powerful voice. I remember when I was younger and I was in drama school in London, my singing teacher was telling me to actually bring it back a bit. It was a bit too much. So I've always had quite a big sounding voice. I've always liked people with big sounding voices. So I think if you can bring the two together, that'd be good. So Olivia Dean, Ray's got a huge sounding voice as well. And then I like a lot of the country artists in America as well, like Lainey Wilson and stuff like that. And um, you know, Lacey Booth's another one who's coming up. Who's doing really well. I've seen her on TikTok. She's got an amazing voice. Yeah, and then like male, Chris Stapleton, hands down. Uh, Huge voice, love him, great voice. And then I also, British, I like Stereophonics, like Kelly Jones. I think he's got a great voice. Really, one of my favourite voices actually is Kelly Jones of the Stereophonics. Just because it's just so unique. And then he was one of the first artists I saw live where, if it had took me in blindfolded and said we're just playing a record through some speakers for a sec, he's not here yet, I would believe you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's a band that's not very familiar with in America, but Stereophonics,
yeah, it's crazy, isn't
fantastic.
it? Because
Yeah.
they've kind of gone under the radar a little bit in America, but they're amazing. So if anyone's listening from the United States and never heard of Stereophonics, please do yourself a favor and go right back to some of the earlier albums as well. Go back to some of the early Stereophonic stuff, and you'll be on a huge musical journey because they've brought out so many albums as well, the ones that have never really stopped. So
Yeah.
that's what I kind of aspire to do as well.
Here's a question for you. Here's a guy that I've not heard of in a long time. The Streets and Mike, is this Mike Skinner? Is that his name?
Mike Skinner. He did a festival, did Glastonbury a couple of years ago, I think,
Okay.
or the year before last.
Okay. So they're still
Uh,
relevant, or he's not really
yeah,
doing
he's
stuff?
still doing stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
still doing stuff online. I think he had a little bit of a break, but he's definitely still active with stuff. But he's great. He's got some, just like completely sort of era defying genre of music that he kind of brought in that really kind of flipped things on their head and was out there, completely different to anything else that was going on. And
Yeah. Yeah,
got
you're
some
right.
great
You're
tunes.
right.
Got some great tunes, like spoken word in it.
So let's talk about the festival scene in England, because obviously
Yeah.
Glastonbury is one of the biggest festivals in the world. You have Isle of Wight, you have Reading, you have Leeds, right? For you as a fan, like, do you prefer to go to like a festival, or are you more about
Uh,
to see an individual band?
Much prefer. I do love festivals. Yeah, I think I like both to be honest. But then I like the vibe of a festival, especially if it's a weekend festival and you're camping because you can kind of chill out a bit more. You don't have to. There's so many different bands to see, and it's for an amazing price a lot of the time as well. Where you can build yourself a little mini itinerary and make an effort to actually go out and see everyone you're going to go and see. It's always like miles. It's always a really good price, I think, for how many different amazing bands you can see, especially some of the smaller ones. So I think festivals definitely, but then I try and go out and see normal gigs as well. One thing I don't like though is being I don't know whether it's just because I've been on stage so many times. Don't really like being like just properly sandwiched in amongst it all in the crowd, which is kind of strange. But I much prefer being on the other side. So I like to just chill somewhere where there's a little bit more space around me. But Yeah, I remember being at like Leeds Festival when I was younger and being like, I hadn't even done any big stages at that point. I was like, I don't belong here. I belong over there on the stage, like looking at, but like the audacity to think that and look about and see like about, 30, 40,000 people. But that's how I've always kind of felt. But I still enjoy going to see gigs and festivals. I think they're great and long live live music. I've always said.
So is there a concert maybe or a band? Well, yeah, let's do a concert. Was there a concert maybe like in your teenage years or your high school years where you saw that concert and you're like, man, like this is what I want to do? Or like was it a reaffirmation of something that you had already known you wanted to do?
I think it was. I went to see the Levelers, like a folk band. They were the first bands I ever saw live. In like a sports hall, I think. Big like folk band in the UK. I would check them out. It's like folk rock almost. And I remember my mum took me right to the front, and I was literally taking a taking a little digital camera. It was probably 2001, something like that. I was really, I was young enough for it to be able to hold me up the entire time anyway, at the very front row. And that was when I kind of was mesmerized about how close I was and seeing all these different musicians. And that was made probably a huge impact in me wanting to go and want to do that for a living anyway.
Yeah. So let's talk about Interval Records. They took a chance on you, I would say, right? Because I mean,
Yeah, massively.
talk about
Yeah.
that and talk about that relationship.
Yeah, Josh has been, can you see me all right? Hang on.
Mhm.
Yeah, Josh has been phenomenal. He's the head of Interval Records. It's great. It's been great for me. It's because it's like the way it's structured is like an independent label, but then it's like umbrellaed under EMI North, umbrellaed under Universal. So they took a big chance on me because I'm so early on, and it's only for EPs, but then I think we've just built that a great relationship to the point where we're over that's right up to the people at Universal as well, where I'm very grateful to be surrounded by the people I'm surrounded by, in the sense that they're aware of the vision, they're passionate about the whole project as well, they're aware of the potential of it, and they've just got a lot of belief in it. And then they're able to give us, well, they are firsthand proving it by being able to give us the creative decision making and putting the trust in us to go with what we want to do. They obviously we're open to discussions and stuff about things, but they're aware of it's worked so far. It worked up to a certain degree and point, before they came on board, where they could see it was working. So they came on board and they just they just instead of coming in and trying to take complete um, control over stuff and do what a lot of people hear nightmare stories about labels. They've completely done the opposite, really, and just been there as a kind of built up an almost sort of foundation and infrastructure to kind of just um, help and with the progression of what was already kind of happening. And I'm fortunate to be the kind of first signing to Interval, and so everyone's wanting to prove a point, including me. So it's a good time and a good point to be in them.
Definitely. So let's talk about the future. You've got quite a tour coming up in May and June in the UK.
Yeah,
Talk about that and then talk about the music.
yeah, got a ton of the UK tour coming in May, well, end of May, start of June, and then got EP coming out as well around the same time. Embers, the second single for that will be out on the seventh of March, and then there's two more tracks going on. That'll be a 4-track EP, which I'm super excited about, and then a ton of festivals coming in as well. Loads of festivals that are coming in. I'm headlining Stockton Calling, which is near me. For the first, it's one I grew up doing. It's one you kind of do as a local band, and it's been a while since anyone local has been able to headline it. You get some really good artists in as well, really big artists, really up and coming artists, and big renowned artists, and bring them to the area. And I'm fortunate enough to be headlining that this year. Q Stockton, heading out doing Truck Festival as well. There's lots that are coming on board that will be announced soon as well. That I'm super excited about. Bella Drum, I'm heading to Scotland, Inverness for the first time. Um, Doing Rodney Gathering, which is in Gloucestershire. Just a ton, basically. There's so many. But I'm going to put them all on like a poster and stuff so people can see because they're still coming in thick and fast. And then it will probably be come summertime. I'll have released that Embers as an EP. I'll be in campaign for that. And then I'm hoping to jump on some support tours and stuff, around festivals. Maybe do another tour back end of the year, and maybe move on to another EP back end of the year, which I'm starting to kind of think about now musically because we've kind of wrapped everything up music wise for Embers. So it's done now, which is super exciting. So a very busy year, really. Just on as me talking about it briefly, but things come in every day and every week,
Hot and
more and
heavy,
more.
right?
Yeah, hot and heavy, which is how I like it, to be honest. It's
Yeah.
good. I enjoy
A
it.
lot better than being bored, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
So, last question. I think this is an appropriate last question because it kind of brings everything full circle. So, I got to see Bastille at South by a long time ago when they were an up and coming band
Mm.
like you, and you got to open up for them and
Mm-hmm.
you got to hang out with the drummer and got to talk with them. Talk about that
Yeah.
experience with Bastille.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to do two writing sessions with Will and Woody. We were both in the band. Really lovely guys, really nice, down to earth guys. You would never. I love meeting people who like of that caliber and that size and that success, where you'd never really realize unless someone told you or you knew that they were as successful as they are. It's just because they're so down to earth and they're so nice as people. And it was a huge show. Um, just really fortunate to be able to. It was quite funny because I got that show through like a local promoter because it was near me, and I had the writing session booked in with Will at the time, and so neither weren't linked at all. I think I ended up doing the session with Will, and then at the session I was like, "Oh, by the way, I'm warming up for you guys," and he was like, "No way." So that was quite cool as well. That was quite nice. It was weird that they weren't linked, but yeah, it was cool. And yeah, just it's been really cool as an artist to be able to get a little bit of a feel and a glimpse of what it could potentially be like if you were to kind of really break through and on that scale. Um, it's been really nice to be able to jump on a stage of that size and play to, I think it's about 4,000 people there for that one. And just get a feel for it and keeps you motivated. I think a lot of people struggle with doing stuff like that and then coming right back down again, because there's so much up and down. But if you can kind of keep your visions aligned and have the end goal is something that you can always have in sight, and just enjoy the process. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience.
That's well said, my friend. Well said. Ladies and gentlemen, Finn Forster. Much love, much success, much luck to you. I can't wait to see you next month at South by.
Thank you
Let's
very
hang
much.
out. Let's eat some barbecue together.
Yeah, 100%. I'd love that. It's one thing I'm looking forward to is all that and In-N-Out Burger. I
Well, so
think.
I will say, if you've not had Whataburger, I would
I
try.
haven't actually. I've heard about that as well. I'm gonna come home about like 5 stone heavier, I think, but for good reasons. It'll be all right.
Your
So much
girlfriend.
to
Yeah,
so
you're
much
gonna
to
come
try.
home 10 pounds heavier.
Yeah, so much to try. So much to try. Which I'm looking forward to. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. And yeah, best of luck. And
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much. No, thanks. It's been a pleasure. Great talking to you. Thank you,
Cool.
man.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us, that helps the bands and artists like Finn. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear, RAR. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Dog. You've been great. This is the Music Lab Podcast.